so beautiful, and welcome back. And before we begin, I would love to invite you to just take a slow breath with me. Just inhale through your nose and exhale slowly through your mouth. And I would love to start with something that might feel really familiar. I know it does for me. There was a moment not all that long ago where I was standing in my kitchen and I realized that everything looked fine on the outside. My life looked pretty good. My relationship looked okay, pretty stable, pretty consistent, and nothing was really technically wrong. And yet I felt so disconnected. I felt a little unseen and honestly, more than a little lonely. And I remember thinking, why doesn't this feel the way that I thought it was going to feel? I don't know if you've ever been there, but maybe you've had a moment like that too. It's that quiet moment where you feel like you're doing all the right things. You're doing the checklist, you're showing up with gratitude, you're doing self care, you're putting a smile on your face, you're doing your best to not create disconnection where connection can be possible. You're showing up, you're trying, you're giving, and you're thinking about the relationship, maybe constantly. And yet, something still feels off. And what I find that most women do in that moment, what I also did, wasn't pause. I find that we just try harder. We sense that something's just not right and take that message as information that we're doing something wrong, that we need to try harder. And I remember going into that mode myself and thinking, okay, I just need to recommit. I need to reset. I just need to communicate better. Maybe I need to be more patient. Maybe I'm not using my vulnerability. Maybe I just need to go for a walk and take some self care. Maybe I just need to say what's on my heart differently. And all of those things, they helped when I did them, a little bit anyway. I explained more, I gave more, I tried to be softer, clearer, better. And each time for a little while, it felt like maybe that was the key. Maybe it was working. And then it would go right back when I wasn't looking. And that's when I realized that something something else must be off. And when I realized what that something was, that changed everything. And this isn't about doing more. So if that's coming up for you, I would invite you to just stay with me because I see this all the time with the women that I work with. And I had a client not that long ago. She's so beautiful and she's successful and she's so deeply loving, kind. And she told me, I feel like I'm doing everything and I'm still not getting what I need. And I'm not even really sure what that is. And like me, when we started looking deeper together at what that might be, she realized that she was constantly trying to earn connection. She was spending her time, her energy, her thoughts, making things easier for him, doing the dinner that he liked the best, trying to dress attractive, sharing a little bit more gratitude, working to avoid conflict when she was hurting inside, over explaining, trying to justify her desires or her vulnerability or defend that She wasn't able to keep a smile on her face right then, over explaining and just trying to keep everything running smoothly. And underneath all of that, what we found was that she just didn't feel chosen. And that's the part that really matters because this is the pattern. And I would love to invite you to really see this and see if it resonates. It sounds something like some version of when this happens, insert whatever this is, then I'll feel better. Sometimes it's when he shows up differently. Sometimes it's when I get the bills caught up, when the kids finally take a nap, when I can finally make some time for self care, when my partner and I finally feel more connected, when things improve, when I get my miracle, then I'll feel okay. But here's the truth that I find over and over again is that those things, they're amazing in their own right when they happen. I am not here to take anything away from them. Not at all. Not at all. They are wonderful. Yet, for me and so many other women, even when those things show up, that longing, that feeling of something's just not right, it's not how I thought it would feel, that comes back. And the win and the high from the things that went right, it just doesn't last. In other words, you might find that, like me, you get the thing that was the thing when this happens, I'll be happy. Maybe it's a better conversation, a moment of connection, a date night, him finally choosing me, him touching me, giving me affection, giving me more attention, bringing me flowers, buying me that gift, taking me on a vacation. And for a moment, there might be relief, but then you find that you're right back at it again. And what I see over and over again, the reason that this happens is because nothing outside of you, outside of me, outside of us can permanently change how we feel about ourselves. And I would love to say that again because for me this was the key in realizing that as amazing as my wins in my relationship can be, in my life can be, nothing outside of me can permanently change how I feel about myself, even if everything around me in my life looks shiny. That feeling that does create the change long term, it comes from within. And that's the only place it can start. And I would love to slow this down for a second because this is really important. When a woman doesn't feel deeply grounded in her worth and her value, she'll often automatically, without realizing it, start to overgive, over explain, try to fix things, or beat herself up, or just completely give up or shut down. And none of that means you're doing something wrong if any of this sounds familiar. It does mean that perhaps there's a part of you that doesn't feel fully chosen, fully secure, fully enough, just as you are. And when that part that feels that is activated in any number of ways throughout the day or throughout the week in life, then what I find is that we can start to try to create safety by doing more, by trying harder, by being better, by figuring it out, by looking for the answer and not giving up until we find it. But what if, stay with me, what if that's not actually what creates safety or stops that feeling long term? What if? And I remember the moment that this really finally shifted for me. And it wasn't dramatic. It was actually really pretty quiet. I was sitting alone and I realized that I'm waiting for something outside of me to make me feel okay. And in that moment, I had this thought after I realized it, like really let it land. There was part of me that always knew that that was what I should think or what I was thinking. But in this moment, I was finally ready to try to figure out how to surrender that. And I had this thought, what would life be like if I didn't have to wait for something outside of me to feel like I was enough, to feel like I was worthy? What if, even here, even now, even with things seemingly a little messy or a lot messy happening around me, even if before anything at all ever changes, I can believe I am already enough, then what would things be like? And I'm not going to say that in a surface level way, not at all. And I'm not here to say that it was easy. But first, I did need to consider it. I needed to get curious. I needed to start noticing where I was naturally leaning towards that direction instead of just being with myself and choosing to figure out what I needed to be okay in that moment. So I'm not saying it on a surface level. I'm saying it as a returning, a grounding, if you will, a coming home to yourself, the self that is always there waiting for you to return to her. Because the truth is, we don't become worthy when things around us improve. We don't become worthy when our partners or anybody in our life shows up differently. We don't become worthy when we get the job or our children behave in a way that makes us proud or we lose the weight or our marriage is finally feeling safe and secure. Those things are all amazing. And that's not when we become worthy. We also don't become worthy when we finally earn it or get it right, whatever that means. We already are worthy right now with whatever is going on around us. And I would invite you to try to lean into that because it matters. And when that begins to land, even just a little, what I find is that everything starts to shift, not because we force it, but because when it finally lands, even a tiny bit, we start showing up differently. We walk differently. We start to believe things a little bit differently about ourselves and other things around us. And for me, I started noticing small things. Instead of over explaining, I would pause and get curious. Instead of automatically going into, I need to fix this, fix everything, I noticed what I was feeling, what the sensations were, what the emotions were underneath that. And instead of in a panic looking everywhere around me, except inside of me, to chase reassurance, I sat with myself first. And it didn't look dramatic, but it certainly did feel a whole lot different. It felt calmer, more grounded, more like the real me, if that makes sense at all. Because I was sitting with me. And the beautiful thing is when I sit with me, when I get curious about me, that's where all my power lies. That's where I can choose to lean in. And this is what I truly desire for you. Not perfection, not to have it all figured out, but that moment of remembering who you are, the moment where you pause and instead of telling yourself you need to try harder, you soften and you realize, I don't have to earn this anymore. I am already worthy. So this week, my invitation to you is not to try to fix anything, not to try to change your relationship, and not to tell yourself that you need to try harder. The invitation is to just notice. Notice the spaces or the times where you might be trying to earn your worth instead of leaning in and seeing that it's already there. Notice, where am I over explaining? Where am I looking outside of myself for reassurance before I look within? Where am I telling myself that I'm enough or that I will be enough when this happens, when I do this, when this materializes or manifests in my life? And instead of judging whatever it is that comes up for you, just see it, just notice it. And if you do notice it, then gently say to yourself, I see what I'm doing, and I'm allowed to soften. I don't need to earn my worthiness. It's right there inside me. And that is where this begins, in my experience. Not in perfection, definitely not in control of ourselves or others, simply an awareness of noticing. And maybe sometime this week, you too will have that moment where you might normally automatically go into explaining more or trying harder or overthinking. And instead, you decide to pause and notice, to just get curious and to just be with it. And in that pause, it might sound simple, but what I find over and over again when that happens is something true, something real starts to shift a little at a time, because that's it. That's the beginning, just noticing. And if you're here, even just listening to this, you've already started. And I'd love to hear from you, even if it's just a comment of, I'm here, or this resonated, or if it fits, where do you notice you're doing this? What, where does this manifest for you? And then just remember, while there is breath, there is always, always hope, and you are already worthy. You don't need to try harder. So I'm sending you all kinds of love. You don't need to try harder.